Welcome to Just the Who of Us, hosted by Rhea Higgs. This is a space for honest, thoughtful conversations around mental health, life journeys, holistic wellnesses, and the experiences that shape who we are. Take a breath, settle in, and join Rhea and today's guests as we explore the stories that connect us.
Today with us, we have Nicholas Ruchlewicz. And Nicholas is here today to talk with us about his experience with a traumatic brain injury and how that led to his life's passion. Nicholas, tell us just a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a fun adult male. My injury happened when I was around 35. So I am a avid, I love music, going to concerts. I love, gaming, and I'm a dad of two awesome dogs. And we're happy and happily married. And yeah, I know we'll talk more about my injury and kind of what led this, but I've always been very passionate towards mental health. I've had a lot of struggles growing up with it, so I've been very vocal towards it. So this allowed me opportunities to help assist more in healing and growth.
I always love when people take a traumatic life experience and either, figure out a way to help the world with it or figure out a way to turn it into something beautiful because trauma isn't beautiful when we're feeling it, right? But to be able to take our trauma and turn it into something beautiful and or beneficial is always wonderful. So I applaud you on that.
Thank you. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of use the nomenclature gift of perspective. It's given me a lot of there's given me good through it. And it's, again, a very good gift. What do you look at the gifts for all trauma through our lives and what we go through, all different, not just physical. So I definitely see things very differently now.
Yeah, yeah. Tell us a little bit about that for those who are not familiar.
Um, so my injury, I was in a single vehicle motorcycle crash, March 15th, 2016, the Ides of March on Brain Injury Awareness Month. So double jeopardy.
Mhm. Oh gosh.
I uh, separated my pelvic circle. I broke my sacroiliac. I had a crushed left orbital, a massive concussion, a right side brain bleed, so hematoma. I would say just a little bit of trauma. I have no memory of the incident. It was all fortune that I was picked up. I just had a really rough separation and divorce. So I was living with my mother, which is great for a 35-year-old male. But I was going through a lot, and that's where they kind of said, "Where's Nicholas at? Something's going wrong." And I had a storage unit that was, had all my stuff, and that's where I ride the bike because it just snowed. We're in Northern Virginia, so it always snows in like March. So I didn't want to mess up my paint job. So that's where it happened. People came. It was roughly the injury happened roughly around 7:30, most likely. That was the last time they saw me going around the unit, and the paramedics showed up, EMT at like 11:30, 11:22 actually. So about 4 hours, my body lied there. I was taken to a trauma unit, and they were immediately concerned that a bone was going to pierce the brain. Fortunately, it did not. It
Oof.
was just a lot of swelling and internal bleeds. But they were also worried about the pelvic injury because I shredded my pelvis. I had, before my injury, I fortunately lost a lot of weight. So I would say it was good because otherwise I could have abrasions. So I separated my pelvis, but everything was internal. So I only actually have one cut right outside my eye where a bone protruded through. Otherwise I would have bled to death. There is no question.
Yeah.
Um, I was wearing a 3/4 inch helmet. Otherwise I would be gone. Um, the recovery was very different and difficult. Every brain injury is different. So mine is right side, which means left side negligence. It means not cognitive, a lot of problem solving issues, very compulsivity. Also, with the pelvic injury, I was non weight bearing for 12 weeks, so I couldn't stand. So when we work with brain injury patients, a lot of them will be very compulsive. They want to get up, they want to do things. Well, I couldn't do that. They had to tie me down to bed, tie my arms down. When they didn't, I pulled staples out of my head, intubator out. Again, when you're an adult male or adult person and you don't want to be in a situation where you don't have control. But I was never in a coma. I was never technically unconscious, but I wasn't aware of anything. So people would come in my room and I would kind of have some response to them, like when I needed to eat, like we're going to go to dinner and stuff like that to just to get me going. So that was roughly 2 weeks. Then I was transferred to, that's when things started waking up, I say, because I was transferred to a rehab facility and they said, Kyle is take me there. So that's my girlfriend's brother's name. That's when things started clicking. And that's where I woke up and, things were weird. I saw two of everything. I couldn't move my hands, very just overwhelmed with everything. And that's when I found out the work really had to begin. I was fortunate I still had my appendages, but I just couldn't, all I could focus on was I can't walk. I can't, that's fine. But I didn't realize it was a lot more going on because of the brain injury. I had to relearn how to see, saw two of everything, so I had to relearn how to use my eyes. And again, small dexterity control, move my eyebrows, a lot of little things. And then the hardest thing for me was I always felt like I was being treated like a kindergartner, like trying to learn basic things. I was like, I can do this. I can understand this. Why are you treating me like this? And then that's where I had to realize that maybe there was something more. Because when they say you go see a speech therapist, I'm like, I talk fine. I talk too much. But it's also to understand your cognitive abilities and is there any deficiencies to work through. And so it's about 2 weeks in acute rehab, and then about a week, 2 weeks in home health, and then 6 months in outpatient. So that's a obviously I'll expand on everything we want, but that is the very broad overview. And
Yeah.
in the hospital, so in the emergency room in the trauma unit, they have active now Trauma Survivors Network, which is I'm a part of as a volunteer. When my injury happened, it wasn't active. And then in the rehabilitation hospital, they have what's called peer mentoring, where former patients speak their stories. And I couldn't stay long in the one I went to. I was in a lot of pain, which I now call discomfort. But I heard a person's story, and they said that they had a brain aneurysm and couldn't understand what letters and numbers were. And they were a math professor, and I'm like, why am I being selfish? I just can't calm down. So that little 5 minute, just hearing that person's story for 5 minutes made me realize that I can do this, and I want to help others see where they are going through this journey. I want to be with them.
Yeah, that's amazing. And uh, most often it maybe not most often, but a lot of times for a lot of us, it takes something really big in life for ourselves or someone close to us to say, wow, my problems really are not that bad, or going through something like you said, witnessing someone else's testimony or seeing someone else go through something, and you're kind of like, man, my situation could have been so much worse. Um, y- you know, and I was actually gonna mention the Trauma Survivors Network. So, um, tell me a little bit about your experience working within this network. Because I mean that's pretty big in my opinion. That's a that's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, so Trauma Survivors Network is originally it was actually started in Nova Fairfax, and it was acquired by I believe the American Trauma Society, but used to be called Rebuild. But so every trauma is different. My trauma, this Trauma Survivors, it's physical trauma. It's going through a trauma unit. It's an ER trauma unit, so it's car crashes, falls, unfortunately, violence. But that is a trauma event. So that's what Trauma Survivors Network is. So They are a group now. They're in, I think, 260 locations across the units now in Canada as well as Australia. So what it is it is a support group where people can speak about their experiences because many people's modalities are never the same. Their injuries aren't the same either, but
Right.
there is always a similarity in recovery and trauma. I mean, it is isolating, it is fearful, it is, hopeless. I mean, there all these things are generally a similar feeling of trauma. So what we do, what I am a volunteer with and with training is I can talk to patients and have them speak to me about their experience with trauma and how trauma has touched them. And we can help provide, we can't say guidance because we can't give medical advice, but we
Right.
can help provide what worked for us, as well as we as trauma survivors hear things a little differently than others. So a patient will talk to us differently because I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to poke you, anything else. I'm here to talk to you. And I always say, I saw something once. Sympathy is when you look over someone, but empathy is when you walk with them. And I try to show them
Mm,
that I'm with you in this journey. And I've had amazing experiences with trauma survivors. We do a lot of advocacy work. So I've been to firehouses. I actually spoke to them about a month ago. Training schools, EMT schools, advanced education. I've done those. And 3 years ago, I went to United States Congress and spoke to different lawmakers about the importance of having a national trauma unit. And with trauma there is generally a lot of anxiety and depression,
yes.
PTSD, and traumatic brain injury is very different. It affects everyone differently. They call it the invisible injury. And actually male traumatic brain injury survivors are actually twice as likely to die by suicide than regular not regular males, but especially white males that have a lot of issues right now with suicide ideations.
Hmm.
So that's where it comes into the mental health aspect, where I can help, with my journey through my, mental health experience, my therapy experience, to get us where we are, where I am now, and help someone else see that they are not alone in this.
Yeah, yeah. I think that from personal experience and speaking with other people, a lot of times what drives people into the mental health field is personal experience. And whether that be personal experience within your own self and your own quote unquote struggles, or seeing someone else go through something and, maybe we couldn't help them, but we can help other people. And it's just another one of those things where it's just a blessing to be able to take that and help the outside world with it. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about peer support because I think it is a really important thing, that a really important career uh, path, if you will, that a lot of people aren't aware of. Um, I think that when we think of, okay, I'm going to go into the mental health field, that means I have to be a therapist or a counselor, right? But that's not the case. There are other ways to give back to your community if you want to do work in the mental health field. And peer support is a fantastic way to do that. I have had a friend who she obtained some education to be a peer support person. And when she was telling me about this, now mind you, I already had a degree in psychology and a degree in holistic
I
mental health.
lost your audio,
Oh,
but you're back. You're back.
okay. I already had degrees in the mental health field when I encountered this experience with my friend, and she's a good bit younger, and she has multiple diagnoses, mental health diagnoses. She has a lot of difficult life experience from childhood on, and she was telling me about, getting into peer support. And I was like, wow, like that's amazing, and you don't have to go to college for 24 years. So, that's a plus. But in a lot of ways, it's kind of like doctors and nurses. The nurses do all the work. And all, okay, the nurses do all of the support work, right? And that's what, you know, say the surgeon performs the surgery, but they're there for a second, but the nurse does all the support work and they really make a huge difference in this person's life. And to me, that's kind of what peer support is like. You are there supporting this person through this difficult time in their life. So I really commend people who do that. It's amazing work. Tell us a little bit about your experience with peer support.
So it is very humbling to be able to, be there and with someone in some of their lowest times. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
this is something they're not there. And I've seen people that have been through serious situations or violence and coming into the group setting. I mean, they're very nervous in the first visit and very, uncomfortable where they are. But, 5 or 6, session, times in, we meet once a month. They are not a different person, but they are maybe getting back to their other person, what they used to be.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to say because, I don't want to say like they're someone different, but, every event creates it's fear response, nervousness of what's out there, hopelessness. But I can see growth in people through this program. And again, it is a safe space, and that it's like, it's what goes in the, says in the rooms, it stays in the rooms. I mean, I've learned a lot of HIPAA training, so I understand how to speak to patients and other stuff. So I can bring up stories of other survivors and just say, hey, I met someone, they went through this, and never give exact details, etc. But
Right.
through the support groups, good. And I'm sometimes looked at as a leader because of my confidence and everything else. But there's been times where I've been there and I just cried, just like emoted, because sometimes things go over. I mean, this is a very powerful week for me this week, is because in the end, I mean, it's recorded on the 10th of March. In 5 days is my trauma, so I used to go through like every year, my trauma, I would basically go back and do an apology tour of everybody that I hurt along the way, or I'm so sorry I went through this. So now I've tried to refocus that and try to show this is what I've done since my last, year. So I keep trying to push myself to that envelope to keep doing a little bit better. So in the peer support, network, I mean, in the training portion that I have, again, going to see patients, sharing their story, our story, listen to their story, and giving some, again, hope where there is none. I always say hope is a free medicine. Like I've
Yeah.
met a patient before, and they are now another peer support person, and they had a horrible trauma. And I remember in the thing they had their a relative's like a child's backpack there had Batman. And I said, you like Batman? And they said, yeah. And I said, what would Batman say? But I actually met the writer of Batman, and I'm actually going to see him again this weekend, Tom King. And I spoke to him about that. This person had Batman. What would Batman say? So he picked up a comic book and said, it's okay to be scared. Everyone gets scared. Now's a chance to be brave, Batman. And Tom King actually used to work with soldiers with PTSD. So again, these little, things help inspire people. And I told this to the person, they were very, you know, this it meant a lot to them, and that's what's a great thing about it is we take our experiences, at least I try to take my experiences with supporting others and try to help enhance those around me to show that there is people to help. And through my various activities, I've interviewed people from literally around the globe, including a major musician, and speaking to her, it's shared online, and she's Italian, Lacuna Coil. But some of the fans actually reached out to me and said how trauma touched their lives, or people that were EMT that, reached out to me, letting me know how important my story is to help show others that they have others out there. And number two, also showing others who do help support people in those situations that what they are doing adds validity. What they are doing is helping others, because we all I believe everyone wants to know that they have a purpose, that they are here to, helping others. So it doesn't matter if you're an EMT, a school teacher, I mean, hell, even someone at a coffee shop. You are
Mm-hmm.
helping others enjoy their day and trying to remember that is a gift that we can all give each other, is that what would we do in that situation? That's what a lot of the support network has done for me. It's given me that ability to really be my true self and be able to help others through it. And I'm a big man. I have facial hair, I have tattoos, blah blah blah. But when I can approach someone in a very different mentality, it shows them that, take away the blinders, isn't what they see. This is who I am. And that's what's really
Yeah.
important to me.
Yeah. 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 I want to spend a few minutes to and I don't ask a lot of people about this, but this is something that, the topic of focus today isn't podcast guesting, but I do want to spend a minute talking about it because it's a really great way for people to tell their stories and reach other people. And I imagine, I'm going to let you tell me your reason, but I imagine your reason, for coming on and guesting on podcasts is so that you can reach other people who may have a similar experience or even work with people who have similar experiences and kind of encourage them to embrace their trauma in the same way and also encourage people to share their stories. So I guess what is your reason for podcast guesting? Because I know I'm not the only person that you talk to. Um, what is it that makes you want to go on other podcasts and talk about this?
I want to go because I do know how much it means to me. So another person who's actually on the interview with Christina Scabia with me, brain injury survivor, Andrew Davey, he had a brain aneurysm, but he did
Mm,
podcasts. He was one that informed me of, Podmatch and other abilities to find podcasts. And
okay.
he actually did an article on sameu.org, Amelia Clark's foundation in the United Kingdom, which I actually reached out to as well, and they feature me as the advocate as well. But seeing him, listening to his podcast that he did and talking about his journey really meant a lot to me. And I said, I can reach someone too. And again, this is someone who, was in the hospital. I mean, he remembers me speaking to him, and now he helps inspire me. So I realized that is something that is very powerful. And then reaching out to podcasters, I know that the reach is literally around the globe,
Yeah.
and some people can, listen to it wherever they are. And that is very powerful for me to be able to reach people in, like, I have friends of the band in Costa Rica, and they always listen to all the new podcasts I'm on. And I have other people that have, reached out to me from, farther parts, just to say, hey, I really appreciate your story. What can I do to help? Or also, what can I, is there anything you can guide me on? And that's something that's really powerful, that the podcast is, because I mean, the world is hard enough. We all know what many people are going through in this really crazy time. So it is great that there is I don't want to just say safe space, because I think sometimes those names that's utilized too much. I mean, this is it's a comfortable space where we can be honest. I mean, there's a lot of psychological studies saying that, like, if you can talk to your dog about what's going on,
Mm,
or talk to your pet, or just talk to in the car while you're doing it, it allows you to vocalize it. Well, this podcast is a safe way for people to kind of reflect on where they are, and that's something that is very strong. And I've done podcasts with veterans and other, EMT, and that is helpful. Again, I don't have those necessary experience, but many of them go through the similar struggles. And I'm grateful that my story isn't just, well, it only applies if you have a TBI survivor. Absolutely not. My story can help apply to anybody that has struggled, that has felt hopeless, that has felt abandoned and isolated. And it's funny because many of us have those.
Right.
and having, the ability to do a podcast, to reach out with wonderful, hosts. And you all have a lot of compassion because obviously you're doing this not for, any fame or glory necessarily. You're doing it to help people. So you had that goal in mind when you started this, and it helps branch out because again, the world's in a rough spot. And a lot of people always say, oh, it's a mental health issue. Well, nobody's doing anything about it, but your goal in this is to help do something about it. You're being the change you want to see. And again, that's why I do it as well, because I know my journey can help some others when they don't feel there's anything else they can handle.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Um, did you write a book?
No, I just talk a lot. That's why
No.
my name's NPR, Nicholas Peter Ruchlewicz. I talk a lot. So
I thought that
I yeah.
well, you should. But I think everybody should write a book. Everybody with an experience. You're thinking about writing a book? I think you should do it.
I, I've thought of it, and of course, it would be a lot of run-on sentences, probably. But
Well,
um,
that's
I,
why you
I,
hire writing coaches. We can
yeah,
help you with that. But anyway,
yeah. To be honest, I have thought of it just to help bring me more, not closure, but bring me more hope about where my healings led me. And
yeah.
again, Andrew Davey, a good friend of mine now, he's written, I mean, he's been a writer before, but he's written a bunch of books on his journey with, brain aneurysm, on his journey with mother that was, passing of ALS. So he's done a lot
Mm,
of his own experiences. Plus, one of the things that I always say, I have the golden handcuffs. I'm very fortunate. I have a very good job, and I'm able to work hard and be able to succeed. And not everybody has those luxuries. If I could tomorrow, like I would do it tomorrow if I could become a recreational therapist, work in the hospital, and support others with injury, with rehabilitation to show them that there is options out there. Because one of the people I'm very close to now, another recreational therapist, I didn't have when I was in the hospital. I met him through the mentoring program. They actually had a TBI as well, which is why they went into this to show others that we can relate. Like someone says, I know what you're going through. I was like, you never say you know what you're going through to someone in trauma. It's just you don't say it unless you have experience. I empathize
right.
with you. I'm so sorry you're going through that. What can I want to support you is one thing. But
Yeah.
when you say, I know what you mean, do you know what you mean? But anyhow, I
Yeah.
digress.
Um, one more thing I want to kind of cover before we get ready to wrap up. You mentioned CBT work. For those who aren't familiar, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a form of therapy that kind of it teaches you tools. Is the most the easiest way that I guess I can explain it. It was a game changer for me. It was a game changer for one of my kids. And these are all, in relation to trauma you go through, whether it's a child or as an adult. It carries through your life in ways that you don't often realize. And some of those ways are how we interact with other people, how we think of ourselves, and cognitive behavioral therapy is a good way to kind of retrain our reactions to things with tools. And you mentioned this is something that you approached before your injury. And tell us a little bit kind of how that correlates with your healing.
So, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is, I would say, it's a way to challenge yourself and
Mm,
work through the hard stuff. It's not Therapy is not just about I just want to complain and bitch about what's going on in the world. No, no, no,
right,
it's not that.
right.
It is important. I mean, that happens, of course,
Yeah,
but it is important to find out what is the solution to these issues and how do you resolve problems. Only thing we can control is our own actions. But I went through therapy originally, and my my ex-wife. I mean, they had definite issues with certain struggles, and I wanted to see how can I help them? How can I help them? And I realized how to help myself and just really ask myself those questions. What am I doing in this? How am I handling this? Where is my value at? And just breaking that down and challenging, like, here is why you have value. Here is why you are here, just to break that down. So it is very important to go into therapy with humility. Go into therapy
Yeah.
expecting that you are not perfect. Perfect is the enemy of good. So sometimes
Oh,
being good enough is okay. So understanding that those mistakes you made, those challenges you had, are why you're here now. So embracing those challenges to show your growth pattern is important. Like someone said to me, "I'm so sorry you went through that." And I'm like, "Thank you, but please don't take that away from me. I went through those struggles
yeah.
and I came out on a better side. I would never take away one thing that happened to me before where I am now. I would take away the pain my family felt or the worry, but I know that I'm right here, right now, talking, to you, talking to other people from around the globe about my experience, about empathy, and CBT and therapy helped me with that because it really helped me understand that anger is a secondary emotion. What am I going through when I see that, triggering moments, frustration and belittlement for me? How do I deconstruct those and how do I create them into a constructive atmosphere? And through my injury, injury happened. I couldn't go into see therapy, obviously, for, 4 weeks, 5 weeks when I was in the hospital. But when
Yeah.
I went out, I saw my therapist, and again, my therapist for 6 years, helped me through so much. Literally the week later, they had a heart attack, and they had to stop their practice. So you talk about the rug pulled out
Wow.
from under me. Like it is just slap in the face. Wow, is it scary? And I still get sometimes, I get sad about it because I mean, they helped me through so much, but they also gave
Yeah.
me the tools to help move on. And I knew how important my therapy was. I knew how important CBT was for me. So when I started looking for new therapists, I ensured that I wanted someone that had familiarity with that. Reached out to 5 therapists. Two of them didn't respond. Two of them said they're not seeing new patients. One of them said, I can see you, but it's just during daytime hours. And I
Yeah.
said, well, my mental health is the most important thing for me. So I see them and I still see them weekly now, over almost 10 years later. And
Wow.
it has been it's helped keep me here. I mean, if I didn't have those tools for who knows where I would be, we can't, depression is what happened in the past, anxiety is what's happened in the future. I try not to focus on that and, just try to stay in the now and look what I've learned from that. I don't try to get too caught up in what was. I still ask myself, how can I do these items?
Yeah.
But therapist says, don't ask yourself how, just accept that you can.
One of the biggest things for me has been that I can't control what I can't control. And it's not been an easy thing to understand, but it's been the the most important, like the most impactful thing for me to understand. And I started this kind of mantra through a man named Martin Salama. He's been a guest on my podcast a few times, but he wrote a book through his life experience, his difficult life experience. And we were talking, and I was reading his book, and the whole kind of gist of it is you can't control what you can't control. You can control your reactions to things, or your responses to things versus reacting to things. And it's really been, I mean, there's some difficult things that have happened in the last year alone, but it's really when you realize that it makes such a difference. And then I took that and I worked even deeper with that in therapy. But it really is once we realize we can't control everything. You know, I can control how I respond to certain things, but I can't, and the past is the past. You can't, I mean, the past is the one thing you can't control over anything, right? Because it's already happened, it's already done. But the most important thing really is just to, be aware of how we respond to things in the present and in the future, and learn and grow from them. And that is certainly what you've done. And I really respect you for it, because, you know, an experience like that it can make or break somebody. And when it makes you, that's really beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Someone asked me, "Do you want to know? Tell me a secret." I said, "There's no such thing as control. It's all a lie."
Mm,
So how do we do it? It's we're the ones that are pushing ourselves forward, just like life.
yeah.
We have to make it our own. We tell our own story, and the more we can stand up with that, the greater, that story is. And maybe you'll write a book one day, as someone told me. But, I mean, I agree 100% with, all these complications made us to where we are now. And I try not to look at the past because it happened. The obvious thing I could tell patients is the only thing I can tell you is the sun will rise tomorrow,
Hmm.
and that we will never be in the same point in time or space ever again. So let a day be a day, and then understand that tomorrow is a new day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about or ask or anything before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the ability to it. I mean, I have a lot of advocacy work. I mean, I am working with my state delegates in Virginia to try to help, speak about some of the mental health barriers. I mean, including my United States Senator, Mark Warner, just trying to work with them to help introduce understanding and vocalization for it. So that is my, goal in the next, again, I have yearly marks. What did I do? And this past year, I've been on amazing podcasts like yourself and just speaking to wonderful people. That's what this past year. The next year is me going to more legislation and try to push for the changes to do. Maybe a year after that, I'll write a book, as someone told me. But it is.
I'll be waiting.
All right. Well, I always say it's going to cost me a lot more because of the font. My name is too long. But besides that, that's why I won't run for any Congress or any political organizations. But anyhow, I appreciate it. That's why I've kind of created the nomenclature, gift of perspective. That's my link tree. And that's where I just want to have, again, more ability for people to see that there is hope out there. There is someone out there, and I will be a safe I'm a safe place for anyone because we all go through these struggles and you are not alone. And remember, hope is a free medicine. So sometimes just having a little bit of hope can help push us to the next one.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I'm glad it worked out, and I'm definitely, I'll be, tell you what, if I decide to start putting my pen to paper, I will let you know one of the first ones. How about that?
Perfect. Thank you. All right, see you later.
Yep.
Thank you for spending this time with us on Just the Who of Us. We hope today's conversation offered reflection, comfort, or a moment of clarity. If this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it with someone who may need it. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, you're not alone in the journey.